How's everybody doing? My name's Mike, and we got Miss Chanel with us today. She is a purebred Great Dane, and she's about 9 months old. So you're going to see me walking back and forth on the leash with her, and what's happening is I'm teaching the dog to listen to the pressure that I put on the collar. So what I'm really looking for is as I start walking backwards and she turns with me, she doesn't hit the end of the leash. I am saying, "Atta girl, good girl." And you see how she's kind of running and kind of messing around, kind of doing nonsense. I'm correcting her for that, and by correcting, I mean I'm pulling the leash if she runs at me very excited or tries to jump and come towards me in any way, or her mouth comes towards me. I'm correcting her by tugging on the leash at the moment she tries doing that. You really want to catch this behavior within 1 second. And now what we're start doing is I'm turning that pressure exercise, her keeping that leash loose, into a heel. So now what we're doing is we're just keeping her on the left side of our body, trying to keep her at our side. As I give affection to her, telling her good girl, you can see she's kind of using her mouth. Dogs do that when they get very excited and they haven't learned boundaries yet. Is they get so excited they express themselves by licking or biting, or they just get very excited and it comes out with the only tool they have, which is basically their mouth. So we're correcting her for that, and I'm actually petting her, like kind of making a big deal, like good girl, trying to trigger that from her now that I see her doing that. And again, every movement she makes towards me, I am correcting her. Anytime she gets overly excited, I am giving her a well-timed correction. And as you can see, the more I give her the affection and give her those corrections, your correction will lead to compliance if done properly at the right time. So now I'm able to pet her and get much less of that excitement from her. And now we're using what we call a heel stick. I'm using a cane just because it's what I have available that seems to work best for me. So I put that cane in front of her. It's the same tool you would use with an animal like a horse to teach them not to cross a boundary. So it's just an easy way to get across to the dog, like, hey, I don't want you to pass this. And the same thing she was doing to me earlier, you see her doing it to the stick, kind of like investigating the stick, putting her nose close to it. And we correct them anytime they try to touch the stick, because it'll become a big distraction. But you can see her doing good and listening to the boundary. And as time goes, they get better at this. And here we are inside my house, and when we're working inside, it's much easier to get the dog to heel. It's not as exciting, and what you see me doing here is I'm introducing the dog to the place bed, and you see me kick my knee up like that. What I'm doing is I'm trying to keep the dog behind me when I turn that corner. So since I noticed the dog was investigating the bed, I go ahead and invite her onto the bed because I can see she's not nervous about it or anything like that. She was curious. So same thing as outside. If the dog's excited, I'm going to give a little correction, a well-timed correction. And we put her on the bed, and then we let her right off that first time quickly. The second time, I'm going to increase the time she's on the bed by a few seconds and then let her right off. It's important to do it very like baby steps for the dog, which is going to get them, not going to overwhelm them. If we just put them on the place bed and require them to stay there like you see my dog doing in the bottom right-hand corner, it's going to be very difficult for her. We want to introduce it in small portions and then slowly increase that duration. But she's doing a very good job of remaining on the place for her first time. A lot of dogs will try to just bolt off of it because they're just not used to being put on a bed and being asked to stay there. So here I start working on her sit, and I found that just lightly touching her butt. Each dog is different how we get the dog to sit. And I found with her being able to just lightly touch her hindquarters makes it a lot easier to get her sit. So a little pressure on the collar, I'll touch her hindquarters, and then she'll slowly go down for me. So at first, we got to find what kind of works for the dog. And here I put her back on place, and I'm giving her a whole lot of affection because she's sitting on place, which means she's kind of accepting that she's going to be there and she's okay with it. So we're trying to nurture that as much as possible and reinforce that behavior as much as possible. And so we keep switching up. We're doing a sit to the place bed. We're switching up so the dog doesn't get bored and start to resist what we're doing. The more you can kind of switch it up with them, the more entertaining it's going to be for her. So you see me try to get her to sit. She kind of resisted a little bit. She kind of like falls into me. So I see I don't have enough room. So that's why I kick the bed out a little bit. And I make a circle and I have her try it again. So it's very important that if something doesn't work, the dog kind of gets the best of you. You want to go ahead and assess the situation, set it up so we can get the dog to succeed. And again, this is the beginning of training when we're first trying to get the message across to the dog, trying to get communication clear that, hey, you're going to have to do these things that we're asking you to do, but we have to convince them mentally. The bigger the dog, the harder it would be if you were going to physically try and just pull the dog onto the bed. In my experience, that doesn't work. We have to mentally convince them on what we want them to do. That's why we're doing everything in baby steps and doing it in a way, building the dog up in a way that she can understand what we're asking from her. With a dog this size, they can easily, they figure out right away that they're a large dog and they can control people. So using a leash is what's going to help with that the most. The leash gives you a way to get the dog into positions, to correct the dog, to keep the dog from running away from you. Because some dogs, if you're asking them to do something, they might just try to take off because they got 4 legs, we have 2, so it's much easier for them to control the situation by just running away. So we want to use a leash with the dog. We want to correct her for the unwanted behavior, and we also want to praise her for the behavior we want to reinforce. So anytime you see me petting her, I'm saying atta girl, and I'm praising what she's doing in the moment. During this session in my home, she really did very well. As outside, you can see she's much more excited outside. Inside, she was much more compliant with me, and you got to kind of take it as it comes. Dogs can have good days and bad days, and especially at first, it is much more stressful for the dog in the beginning because the dog does not have these experiences, and they're all new, and they're learning that we're going to be setting these boundaries. So as you can see, she's doing real good. She's on the place bed, and I'm just reinforcing that, giving her a little massage, telling her atta girl, good place, to reinforce that place command.